Like, I'm talking about a lot of positives that can come out of it, but also why parents and kids should embrace taking a gap year if you're fall under that A, B, C type of criteria. Because one of the things I like to point out now more than ever is being college ready goes far beyond academics. Like, if you're not mature enough, you don't know your social skills, if you don't have the emotional maturity to kind of be in those atmospheres, you don't know what to do when any type of adversity comes, like, you shouldn't be in a college atmosphere because you're setting yourself up for failure. So it's situations like that I'm going to be addressing with the book, but also, like I said, talking about a lot of positives that can come out of it, because I really think parents don't realize the positive things that can come out of a gap year if it's done the right way. And like I said to you earlier, I've really met a lot of people like within the last 1.5 to 2 years that really kind of motivated me to do the second part because of just all the positives that they told me that came out their gap year. And I didn't have that at the time. But now that I met those people and I'm still in contact with some of them, that's what kind of generated the book.
Silence, please! Keep silence! Silence, please! Keep quiet, please! Shh! Quiet! Quiet, please! Silence!
Move this. John, you did a good job too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. I've done some interviews where, not to say they were bad, but you know, you did a good job. I can tell you did your research. You was prepared.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. Oh, wow. Thank you. Wow.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. And for those of you who are subscribed to JSpeaks, thank you so much and welcome back. As you know, it is my mission, it is my passion to bring to you all conversation topics that are positive, motivational, educational, and informational. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here with Ian Parks, military veteran, system administrator, author, and the founder of his nonprofit, After School Special. Ian served 5 years in the United States Air Force, and while fighting for his country, he jumped into the IT space and has been working as a system administrator. Then and now, Ian has always made time to work with teenagers in his community. He has worked with Big Brothers Big Sisters, Habitat for Humanity, the Boys and Girls Club, and several other organizations involved in youth development. With over 15 years of experience working with teens, Ian released his first book called Gap Year, which encourages teens to reach their full potential in life. And in 2016, he founded his nonprofit After School Special, which focuses on restoring self-love, compassion, and social skills within teens and helps them to find their purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and most importantly, listen. And hopefully after today's episode, you understand for yourself that Ian is on a mission to uplift youth, one voice at a time.
Okay, we're going to start for real. In 5, 4, 3.
Feel like I'm in the hot seat.
So Ian, how are you?
I'm doing good. Super excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming here from Raleigh. I do appreciate that.
Yes.
It's great to see you. It's great to finally rekindle. When was the first time you met? I know it was for Jay's book signing.
Yeah, back in, was that July, I believe?
It was July? I mean, you know better than I do. I think it's July?
Yeah, it was definitely the summertime.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was definitely summertime.
So how's everything been since from July up until now? I know you It has to be better than just good.
Well, it's definitely good, but I would say, same grind, different day.
Same grind, different day.
Yeah, same grind, different day.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
Good. Hey, as long as you're smiling about it, I mean, we're all grinding out here, but to grind and appreciate the grind and appreciate, the progress that you're making through the grind.
Yes.
That's all the merrier.
Yes, because that's what keeps me going, ultimately. Just opportunities that come and, meeting new kids, seeing new faces, connecting with new people. Yeah, that's what keeps me going.
Talk a little bit more about that. Any opportunities from July up until now, that experience about meeting new kids and...
Oh, the biggest was I actually was speaking at the McKinnon Center, which is like right outside of NC State. And I believe NC State owns that. But it was amongst Wake County students. So they had various high schools out there. I was on this panel just talking about next steps post high school. And I was able to talk about gap year. And a lot of students I was meeting that day, they came up to me after the panel discussion and were telling me how they didn't know what they want to do and how they were thinking about taking the gap year, and they just wanted to connect and also wanted me to get to their school as well too, because a lot of students that I did meet, I hadn't had a chance to go to their school yet because Wake County is just so big.
Yeah,
it's a huge district.
So when I was in high school, I want to say gap years were popular. Mm-hmm. I know a couple people who took them, but would you say like over the years you've been seeing gap years becoming more of a popular route after high school?
I think it's a more popular route amongst the kids, but I don't think it's popular amongst parents. I don't think parents realize the benefits that can come out of the kids if they do it right from taking the gap year. But even back when I was in school, to me, a gap year was really unheard of. Like I've heard of, I want to say like the deferred entry programs like the Ivy League schools had, but taking a gap year, that was like foreign. I don't know nobody who did that.
Yeah, I mean it's the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
We feel as though step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and like we feel off when everybody's going from high school to college, and then we're the oddball out to saying, I'm going to take this gap year. It's that conformity mindset, that unfortunately that herd mentality. People feel comfortable following everybody, even though internally they might not feel as though that it's the right thing for them to do.
Correct.
And you mentioned, the right way to do a gap year is also the wrong way. So talk about that a little bit. Like what is considered like the right way to do a gap year?
What I always preach, and I hate using the word preach, but what I always kind of say to students is basically a gap year is not you working like a regular like 9-to-5 job and you waiting for life just to come at you, because that's not what a gap year should be. It should be you trying to find a mentor, internship, job shadow opportunities, maybe even still take a class or two. Community outreach, volunteering, like that's huge. Like I constantly talk to kids about that because I feel like volunteering or just helping out a local nonprofit will open up more opportunities for you that you can probably open up for yourself. So I believe if you incorporate all those things, that's how you take a gap year the right way versus you working that 9-to-5 job, whether it's Target, Walmart, or even let's say Amazon, who's paying you good, but you don't have like a plan around it. You're just working. So that's how you take a gap year the wrong way.
And thank you for explaining that, by the way. And would you say that gap years are just that, a year, or have you seen gap years extend to 2 to 3 years through?
That's a great question. I'm actually glad you asked that. I haven't seen nobody take like what they will call a productive gap year for multiple years, but initially it is supposed to be just be that 1 year where you're just basically taking a break from traditional schooling, but you're still in a learning type environment at the end of the day, and you still have things in place where you're basically just having life teach you. Because life is your best teacher at the end of the day. But if you're doing it that way, you should only need a year, because I believe you can get enough exposure in that 1 year to really know like, okay, I want to do this. So let me figure out what's the best route that I can take. through that year and let me just execute and see what happens. And people that I've met, I'm gonna say within the last, I'm gonna say a year and a half to maybe even 2 years, they told me that when they took their gap year, it was the best decision they did in their life.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've met from, I'm gonna say age 45 to as young as 19.
Wow.
Each one has said that was the best decision they made in their life.
And a gap year is not necessarily just taking a break from high school going into college. It can also be after college as well, too, right?
Correct. It can be.
Okay.
Or it could be even during college. Like I met a student who actually goes to UNC Chapel Hill. She was going into her senior year, but she decided to take her gap year and just indulge in this entrepreneurship journey because she started a nonprofit. She's working around youth and she wants to see how far that she can take it because she figured that she can finish that year at any time, but she really got a lot of traction with what she was doing, and she just wants to see how far she can take it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for breaking all this stuff down. I do appreciate it. I'm excited for today's interview. So, but before we officially get started, please, introduce yourself. Who is Ian Parks? Spell out all that transpired before you being a motivational speaker, system administrator, and the founder of your nonprofit After School Special. Please, however comfortable you feel sharing, but talk about everything that led up to you right now.
So Ian Parks is a man that wears many hats, but I love to tell people that I'm one of the best educators that you've never heard of. And what led up to this was really just my passion and love for the youth that I didn't know I had until I went to the military. And it was really through me doing a lot of volunteer work while I was in the military that basically just created a passion that I never knew I had. And it was through working with the youth where I kind of had like my happiest moments when I was in the military. And I just always told myself, like, I didn't know what I was going to be doing as a career per se, but I knew in some way, shape, or form, I had to be around kids because it just came easy and it was just relaxed environment. And I just love working with kids. So I didn't know that I was going to be working with the age group that I'm working with now. But at the time, I just enjoy working with kids in my free time. So I tried to do it as much as I could, but that's pretty much what led up to now.
Interesting. So what inspired you to go into the military? I think United States Air Force, right?
Correct. I was in the Air Force. Honestly, at first it was me. I was actually following another friend of mine. So I had a moment where I thought I was going to be an accountant at one time. But what I did was, which I know kids aren't doing today, but what I did was back then, I was doing research on like my classes, and honestly, I didn't think I was going to pass it. And I didn't have like a mentor or anybody I can really bounce questions off of or anything like that. So I was scared to death. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a friend that was going to the Navy, and I was probably like this close to going to the Navy. But what stopped me was doing research on the other branches. And when I talked to the Air Force recruiter, talked to him, it was smooth talk. I met a few people, and then I went down to the Air Force base at the time. I don't think it's there no more. It's Pope, because I believe Fort Bragg took that all over. But it was Pope Air Force Base. Talked to some people, met them, and I just felt like it was home for me. So that's how I ended up going into the Air Force. And this was, I want to say maybe a month before graduation where I finally made that decision. But I was this close to going to the Navy because of a friend.
So what was so appealing about the Air Force? You said that he talked you into it.
So, it was just me meeting the people and seeing like the relaxed environment. And I felt like my recruiter at the time just kept it real with me from what was going on. And he just told me about the endless opportunities I could have at my hand. And to me, it just felt like it was right. And I don't regret the decision at all.
What was challenging about that experience?
Oh, that's a good question. Racism. And I didn't know I was going through it at the time. I would say the most challenging part, and it's not, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I face it like every day, but I did have a few situations where I endured racism, but I didn't know that's what it was at the time. Like, granted, I've endured it in the past, but to me, it was like just day in and day out dealing with this one person. And that was probably the toughest thing because the guy outranked me. And in the Air Force, well, actually, as in the military as a whole, when it comes to people that are just higher ranked than you, whatever they say is you're supposed to take that to the bank, and you're not supposed to question it at all. So one thing that this chief master sergeant was telling me, I was trying not to internalize it, but I just didn't know where I was going to say the hate coming from at the time. And it wasn't until I kind of replayed the situation time and time again to realize, like, oh no, he actually is racist. Like, because there's no reason why he's coming at me this way for no reason at all. So that was probably the toughest part that I dealt with in the military. Other than that, I enjoyed my time in the military.
And for 5 years.
Yes, I did 5 years. Yeah.
If you could do longer, would you? Or I guess 5 years was the cutoff.
5 years was the cutoff for me because at the time I didn't know if I wanted to stay in or stay out, but I figured I could get out and maybe try to make some things happen on my own, and which is what I ended up doing. Now, it took a little bit longer, and I didn't know I was going to go this entrepreneurship route, but at the time, I felt like the time was right to get out.
Interesting. So you mentioned in your response that you always remember enjoying working with kids, or I'm sorry, youth or teenagers.
Correct.
Can you recall like your first positive interaction with helping a teenager that kind of motivated you to keep going on this path? Because there had to be a first opportunity that led to another opportunity and another opportunity.
That is definitely true. So every Halloween at the base I was at, they always ask for people to volunteer and just make sure all the kids are going to houses and nothing crazy happens or whatnot. But it was, I would say, my first year because a lot of people I work with were older than me. So I knew a lot of their kids. So it was knowing some of the kids that were trick-or-treating at the time and being able to speak to them and walk with them and their parents and stuff like that, that was kind of like a sense of relief when I did it. And I ended up doing it like the whole time I was in the Air Force as well too. But that opportunity grew to me helping coaching, whether it was volleyball or basketball, even football as well too. And then refereeing like sports leagues for youth as well too. And then also from a academic standpoint, just volunteering to help out any youth who might need help in math. Like math, that was my subject, so math was my bread and butter. But also English or history. Yeah, just helping out wherever I could. So those opportunities just grew and grew and grew.
Once you put yourself in that environment,
correct,
you just start attracting opportunities. I get that.
Yeah.
Because that makes sense. Interesting. So before we get into your work with kids and your nonprofit, care to share about your childhood?
Absolutely.
Yeah, talk about that.
I would say my childhood wasn't consistent, and what I mean by consistent as I'm talking about where I lived at. So I was a Army brat, what they like to call it. My dad did 20 in the Army, and I moved around a lot. So I lived in North Carolina. I lived in Germany. I lived in Louisiana, Texas State, Washington State, Mississippi for a little bit. Yeah, so I just moved around. And I would say the only knock against my childhood was really just not having like a consistent set of friends that I kind of grew up with and really just kind of experienced life together. But other than that, me being a military kid it was different. It was definitely different in a good way. And I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't change it for nothing. I learned a lot just being a military kid. And also when my dad retired, that's when I moved to North Carolina officially. And then Raleigh is where I grew up at after that. And that was in 8th grade. And finished high school, then I did my stint in the military, then I came back to North Carolina myself. But yeah, my childhood was good.
What did you learn about being a military kid? You said you learned a lot.
I did learn a lot. I would say the biggest thing I learned about being a military kid is not to be too attached to anything.
That's powerful.
Yeah, yeah. And what I mean by that is whatever it was I was doing, it could have been, sports, teaching, of course, when it comes to friends and whatnot. Just don't get too attached because it is going to come to an end.
That can be used universally.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
Everything's going to come to an end.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
So now speaking on youth,
Mm-hmm.
our childhood is undoubtedly the best times of our lives when we're very young.
Correct.
But, unhappiness and depression and anxiety seems to settle in when we are teenagers, when we get to that threshold of high school and, veering into college. With that being said, what advice could you give a youth or a teenager on adapting to those feelings of depression, those feelings of anxiety?
Oh, I love this question because I talk to a lot of my kids about this and just in general, from a mentor standpoint. I would say not to stress or just not to let things that are out of your control just get to you. Like, for example, if you and your friend get in a fight, like, you can't control what your friend does, but you can control what you do. And how your friend will react to the situation, you can't control that. But, if you're a teenager, you're going to stress over it. You might feel depressed about it, what you did. But ultimately, all you can do is control is you. And if you want to fix it, take that initiative and fix it. However your friend reacts to it, that's how they'll react to it. But at least you did what you were supposed to do. So you can't have any regrets about what you've done. And, same thing if we're talking relationships, if it's a breakup in a relationship, if your partner initiated that, you can't control that. Only thing you can do is try to fix what you did or try to find out what you did wrong so you can be prepared for the next relationship. But teens today stress, get depressed, and have anxiety about things that they cannot control, which is huge because all the distractions that they have and basically all the influences that they have as well too.
So why do you believe that we struggle with that as humans, like relinquishing control?
I think because if you think about it, you said the key word human. Tell me the class that you were growing up in that you might have took that taught you how to be human. There really isn't one.
True.
And it's like going back to a statement that I said earlier about life as your best teacher. It's like a lot of these things that we have to wait and experience in life. I personally don't feel like we should have to wait to kind of like teach that. So if we did have a class, regardless of what subject you would want to put it under, but if we did have a class where this is actually taught or you put teens in these type of situations, they'll be more prepared for it when they encounter it.
That's true. That is true. So doing my own research before the interview, I read that the three main things that cause, I'm sure there's a lot, but from my research, the three main things that seem to cause the most depression and anxiety in teens is phone time, screen time / social media, high expectations to succeed in life, that stress, parents, you got to be this major, you got to make this money, you got to do this. And then also lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Care to share your opinion on those top three?
No, I totally agree with it, but all of it is really combined. Because of how technology has exploded, of course, expectations have exploded as well too, because one thing that social media does is it does give our youth a false perception of what reality is. And actually, I want to apologize. I don't even want to single out social media. I just want to say technology as a whole gives them a false perception of what reality is. Because if you think about it from let's say Google, for example, if you're Googling something and you trying to find the answer, you find it like literally like that, right? But in a teenager's mind, it's actually programming them to think that's how easy life is. So if I encounter a problem or whatnot, I can maybe Google my way out of it. But we as adults know that, there's a lot of things you have to sit through in life and deal with. Or you got to think about it and try to figure this thing out. You can't Google your way out of everything. So I think the false perception of reality because of our technology explosion is what's really damaging our kids in a lot of ways. And think about this too. From a school standpoint, kids are really on these devices like 24/7, which is why I say all of it's kind of connected. So to me, it makes sense that kids aren't getting enough sleep because they keep getting these dopamine hits when they're on a lot of these technology devices, whether it's the phone, whether it's like their Chromebook, or it could be like an iPad or Microsoft Surface or whatever their device they're using. They're constantly getting these dopamine hits. A lot of times they're not really using the devices from an educational standpoint. And then even if they are, statistically speaking, when you are using devices just to learn, you actually learn less.
Interesting.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stats out there where people have done the numbers where, like, let's just take a tangible book. You actually retain and learn more from reading a tangible book than you do reading the same literature if it was on a screen. So to fix a lot of that, personally, my personal opinion, I feel like we got to go back to the way it used to be with when it comes to books and stuff. Maybe outdated, but that old school way can fix a lot of new school problems.
Wow. So have you seen schools kind of cut back on technology, or at least in Wake County? Well, I mean, you just said there are Chromebooks and a bunch of other devices in the school, so I guess that's a no.
No, the only thing that they've really cut back on is really allowing kids to kind of be on their devices.
Got it. Like their personal devices.
Correct. Like the phone and stuff like that. Like, say if it's downtime, like kids can't pull out their phones and be on it or whatnot, unless maybe the teacher authorizes it in their class or whatnot, which is a whole different situation. But kids basically are not supposed to have their phones out in the open. They're supposed to be either on them where you can't be seen or in their book bag where it can't be seen.
Interesting. Makes sense. And I guess, is it the blue light that is influencing memory?
So blue light does a lot. It does affect the memory, but ultimately what the blue light does is it actually throws off your sleeping pattern. Because, for example, if you don't turn the blue light off, psychologically, your brain thinks that the sun is still out. So it actually keeps you up more than it will putting you down to sleep. So the blue light throws you off, and it also dries out your eyes as well too. So a lot of people can get dry eyes just by having that blue light filter all the way up, especially if you're not blinking like you should. Like, it can cause all types of health problems. And the only reason why I know that, I have a good friend of mine that's an eye doctor. So we talk about like a lot of this stuff all day, every day.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And you make a very good point about the dopamine hits and like the short attention span on social media, because everything, reels, 30-second reels and a minute reel, we're so used to receiving short-term content that when it comes time to having the patience to sit down and read a chapter out of a book or do anything that is not involving a screen, or even our own goals and passions in life, like, why is this taking so long? Like, what's going on? Like, is there something wrong with me?
They can't do it.
I see how that's transferable.
Yeah. They and a lot of times they can't disconnect from what that real world is supposed to be. And then we are not even talking about from the social aspect how it's killing like a lot of kids' social skills. And that's one of the top things that employers actually want out of this younger generation is they want kids to be able to communicate, and a lot of them they really can't because they rather go through the phone or whatnot. Or if it comes to even like sending emails and stuff, a lot of kids don't even know how to properly send emails or whatnot. So what we need to do as a society, I feel, is help the kids learn and use these technology devices, but learn how to use them the right way and not just for entertainment purposes or just to kind of like do their schoolwork or whatnot. Because a lot of times these kids, because of their schoolwork, they're on, let's just say technology as a whole, they're on these devices collectively anywhere from, I'm just going to say anywhere from 10 to 12 hours a day, if not more. And just think about how that is slowing down like your social skills or even like your sleep. And I'll give you another study you should look up how many kids actually get into car accidents because of the lack of sleep. That's a
Really?
stat.
Sleeping at the wheel?
Yeah, that's a stat that's not talked about enough as well too. A lot of kids are losing their lives because they're staying up late.
Not texting while driving, just falling asleep.
Yep, falling asleep while they're driving. Yeah, yeah, it's
Wow.
it's not talked about enough at all.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, yeah, but it makes sense though.
It makes sense, but I didn't know like the statistic or the number was so grand that it was, making a huge impact.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and then too, the kids to supplement their lack of sleep, what they're trying to go to are the energy drinks, which is your, of course, Red Bulls. I'm trying to think of like the big sponsor, your Red Bulls, your Monsters. And there's some kids that do coffee or whatnot. I don't see enough that do coffee in my opinion, but those energy drinks, and I'm not going to single out Red Bull, but those energy drinks, a lot of times, a lot of those ingredients aren't the best for you either. Like it might help you for that day, but if you're doing this like day in, day out, you're going to have like long-term effects from a health standpoint. So try not to let that be your first resource. Try to exercise or maybe go to coffee, but don't always jump to Starbucks because all Starbucks stuff isn't good for you as well too from a long-term standpoint. But I see kids try to supplement that, which is kind of like an add-on of a problem just from a health standpoint. So it's like all this stuff that these kids are dealing with today that not enough people are telling them that this ain't good for you. And if you keep this going, this is literally going to be like your daily habit. And you're going to literally do this as you get older. And this is going to hurt you to the point where you're going to have health problems a lot sooner than I would because you're being exposed and you're doing this day in and day out. And personally, when I'm talking to kids, that's what I don't want. I talk to kids about not only their phone usage, but how long they're on their devices. I talk to them about their sleep. I said, listen, in your youth, sleep is one of the most important things that you need because your brain's not fully developed yet. So try to get as much sleep as you can because it's only going to help you in the long run. So all this stuff collectively is definitely hurting the kids in a lot of ways.
I totally agree. I mean, at the end of the day, sleep is the best form of energy or charge up versus any type of energy drink out there.
Yeah.
And when you say that youth can't communicate, you mean that like they can't hold a conversation?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of kids can't. You'll meet special kids that can hold a conversation here and there, but a lot of kids, they don't know how to hold a conversation. Like you'll be amazed at how many kids I might meet. Like when I'm in a school, let's say I do a workshop or two, I could be talking about a gap year, or I could be just talking about like life skills in general. I'll connect with the kid. I'll give them my information, but in the process of me talking to the kid, there's like super nervous, like they don't know how to kind of voice like what they want and what they need. And a lot of times, even when I'm talking to them, a lot of times, especially when it comes to males, a lot of males don't even reach out. Now, when it comes to the females, they'll reach out, regardless of whether they're good at communicating or not. But a lot of males, they don't even reach out half the time when I connect with them. So that's a problem in itself as well too. Like a lot of kids don't even know how to network. But going back to what you originally asked, yeah, a lot of kids just don't know how to communicate, or they haven't been around enough adults to basically just verbalize what it is they need or whatnot.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's real.
And I guess that in and of itself isolates them.
Yes.
And they stay on the phone.
Yeah.
And because they're isolated and they're not around people, there's no human interaction that causes this depression, anxiety, and probably affects their self-esteem.
It does.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are some proven tips to improve a youth's self-esteem? And what's things that you discount that don't work?
I say things that don't work is basically isolating yourself. That's something that doesn't work. But it's almost like, and this helps with anxiety as well too, like practice. Like whatever it is that gives you anxiety, you got to keep putting yourself in that situation so you can basically just do it over and over and over again, because that will ultimately kill that anxiety that you have. But also whatever muscle that you're trying to build up, whether it's communication, whether it's the memory muscle, that's going to help as well too, just being in that situation over and over again. But ultimately it comes down to self-love. Because if you love yourself, that's going to kill all that. Because if you love yourself enough, which is not taught, but if you love yourself enough, you're not going to put yourself in certain situations. Your self-awareness is always going to be on 10. So there's certain situations you're not going to put yourself into. Like you're going to set boundaries when it comes to being on your phone late at night. You know, if you don't go to bed at 10 o'clock, you're going to be sleepy and groggy and you got a test in the morning. So, you know, to be on, basically just to get off the phone and turn it off maybe if it's distracting you, and go ahead and get that night of rest. You know, to turn off that video game. You know, you might have to cut out talking with your girlfriend or whatnot, or boyfriend or whatnot. So you're going to set those boundaries if you ultimately love yourself, because that self-awareness meter is going to be up. So you're not going to put yourself in certain situations. And ultimately that will kill all the rest of the other stuff. But also the biggest thing too is also being a product of your environment. Because if you're not in that type of environment too, you're always going to be pushing against the grain, because it's like you're being taught one thing, but you're in an environment that doesn't really show that example. So it's almost like, how do you come out of that on top? And I think the best way is to keep putting that kid in those type of environments outside of their home, because the more and more they see people interacting like that, especially from a self-love perspective, the more and more it's just going to rub off. It's no different than energy, because if we were all in here sad, ultimately somebody comes in here, they're going to be sad too. But if we're all in here happy and positive and laughing, when somebody comes in here, they're going to be happy and positive and laughing too. So if that kid is able to see and be around people who are just exuberating a whole bunch of self-love towards themselves, they're going to feed off that energy.
So it sounds like an aspect of self-love is just the sheer need of wanting to do better and be better for yourself.
Correct.
And it takes intentionality.
Correct.
And yeah, if you want to be better, it's not just a 1 day or 1 week or 1 month thing. It takes consistency.
It does.
Especially if you're not in the environment that is fruitful to the version of you that you want to be. You have to go the extra mile. You can't wait for somebody to motivate you or somebody to encourage you to be like that, because your environment is not like that. So it takes ownness of yourself and what you want for yourself.
Yeah. And a lot of times you don't even know what it looks like.
Yes.
Until you experience it.
And that's the scary part.
It is. It is.
You want something for yourself, but you don't even know what it looks like.
Correct.
But you know that it's not this.
Correct.
What you're in right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you'll get that gut feeling. You know it's not this, but could it be this? Mm-hmm. Now, if it is this, how do I experience a little bit more of this? And how do I just stay in this area because I like it over here? And that's another issue when it comes to a lot of youth, because when they experience this, you're not behind this. And you can't get that feeling being behind this when you're experiencing this. Because how can you make that connection to know what this is if you're behind this? You never will. So that's why that self-love part is so important.
Yes, listening to your body.
Yes.
And, choosing to go down a path that most people either don't want to go down or don't know about.
Correct.
Because if the majority of the youth are in front of this, it's going to feel scary to do something that everybody else is not doing.
Oh, yeah.
And especially if you can't connect with those people who are on this,
Mm-hmm.
who are you going to talk to?
Yeah. And then you won't even know what to even do, even when you going down that little lonely path as well, too. Because also being in that environment will help you connect with other people.
Yeah.
So that also helps you expand your village as well. And from a networking perspective, if you are experiencing or if you are going down a path that you've never been down before, you don't know who your village knows at the time.
Right.
That's when you're supposed to basically reach out to your village, see who can help you in that area, and hopefully they'll be able to connect you with somebody. And 9 times out of 10, that's how it works.
I totally agree. And it sounds like a part of self-love is, trusting in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting that you're making the right decision for yourself. Like you said, listening to bodily instincts, like how I feel in certain different environments. Embracing the unknown.
Yes.
And just also embracing discomfort. If I want to go down this path that I have never traveled before, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But I just can't stand where I'm at anymore or any much longer.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather go through the discomfort and the uncomfortable times, the unknown, and hope that my body is leading me in the right direction versus staying in something that's been proven to not serve me anymore.
And ultimately, that's how we grow.
That's how we grow.
It is. Yeah.
So how do the youth that you work with, are they able to kind of digest that, or do you feel as though you kind of force that type of thinking down their throat, or like?
I love the fact that you use the word force.
Yeah,
there are times where I do feel like I'm forcing it, and then there's times where I feel like it's just happening.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you have experienced youth who've embraced this type of perspective without you having to repeat yourself.
Correct. I have.
Really?
Yeah. Because I have.
Because humans, going back to our previous conversation or statement, we like to be comfortable.
That's true.
So even if you tell somebody, hey, this is the answer to your problem, they're just like, I hear you, but my body, my mind, and my soul likes what it's been going through, even though I know it's not the best for me. So the fact that you're telling me that teenagers have embraced that, you're working with some pretty great teenagers.
I do have a good bunch. I not to brag on them, but I do have a good bunch. I'm blessed in that aspect. But a lot of it is really just them experiencing life too. Like they don't know how to apply certain situations until they went through that experience. Like I have this team building workshop. Like I don't have a name for it, but I'll split the teams up and I'll put them in a scenario where they're doing basically like a work project, like in a real work environment, but they have 2 coworkers who aren't pulling their weight. Now, one of the coworkers, that's just who they are. They're just a lazy person. But the other coworker that's not pulling their weight, they had a death in their family. They didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't tell the boss. They didn't tell their teammates. And as a group, collectively, they didn't find out until the day of where they had to do a presentation. And I'm talking to my teens like, all right, so how would you work this situation? And then I'll throw curveballs. I'll say, all right, what if it wasn't a death in their family? What if it was maybe a death of a child? Does that change anything? Does that alter anything? So it's like I put my kids in real life situations to see how they will react to it. And then as we're talking through it, we're learning off of how others will make decisions as well too if they were in that same situation. But it's basically like kids coming together to have like real conversations at the end of the day. And I believe they learn each other from that. And also I feel like even though it's not a real life situation that they're in, I feel like just them having that conversation will help them in the future. And it has. It's helped them like think. It's helped them be prepared for situations like that. It's basically helping my kids through adversity, which is something else. If we're going to go back to things that should be taught in school, how do you deal with adversity? Because everybody deals with it.
Right.
Yeah. And everybody's going to react different as well, too.
That's a great. So that's another thing too. So how would you teach something that everybody reacts differently to? Like how would you go about teaching adversity?
So if I taught adversity, it would mainly just be talking about real life situations. Like I'll start off from a personal standpoint. I would tell teens, I went through A, B, and C, but during this time, this is what I did. This is what I did, and this is what I did. But on the flip side of that, I'm also looking back at my decisions and I'm evaluating myself. I'm playing both roles, like the person who might have caused it. I'm trying to figure out, like, did they cause that because that's the type of person they are? Or were they going through a bad day that made me just maybe just get upset or whatnot? It's like I'm looking at things from all angles, but I'm also talking to the kids like, even though I was wrong in that situation, I still could have handled it differently. I could have came at that person like this. I could have came at that person like that. So it's still putting them in real life situations, but trying to look at things from all angles, but also letting them know like bad things are going to happen to you. So how do you bounce back from what bad things happen to you? And a lot of times, of course, it's through conversation as well. But a lot of times, like I said earlier, you just got to really experience it, because going back to that old saying, life is definitely your best teacher. But if I was teaching it, that's a lot of the ways I would teach it. But I would teach it from like all angles too, because like I meet a lot of kids that want to be entrepreneurs. So it's easy for me to throw entrepreneur like scenarios through kids and just seeing how they will react. Like I'm one kid, I was talking to him about paying his employees before he paid himself. I said, hey, if you had a situation where you had to pay yourself or pay your employee, what would you do and why? And at first he said himself. But I said, well, think about this. What if that employee was there with you from day one and they gave you an idea that you took and it helped your business expand? I said, are you still going to pay yourself first before you pay that employee? Or are you going to pay that employee first? Because a lot of times when you are a real entrepreneur, AKA boss, you have to make those type of decisions. Sometimes it may be more beneficial for you to pay your employee versus yourself, because at the end of the day, there's no business that's been able to take off where the person was solo. It's always been a collaborative effort. So if that person is helping your business get to the next step, sometimes you got to bite that bullet and pay them before you pay yourself, because ultimately you're doing it for the greater good. So a lot of times I'm able to put entrepreneurship scenarios and see how my kids will react, which if we were to sum up everything that we talked about today in one subject, it probably would fall under entrepreneurship. Because I do feel like that is the one subject that if kids learn the right way, I'm not talking about no general business class, but if kids learn entrepreneurship the right way, I believe that will prepare them for adulthood. I mean, more than any other subject. You take your pick. It could be psychology, sociology, history, whatever you want to pick. Entrepreneurship, that's the one. Because regardless of whether you're successful or not at your business, there's still a lot of learning that you can do around it. And there's still a lot of learning that will prepare you for your next chapter in life, whatever it is, whether it's college, whether it's the military, community college, be trade school, it can be straight into the workforce, or of course, if you go into entrepreneurship, there's so many things that you can prepare yourself for through that one subject.
I totally agree. A lot of transferable skills through entrepreneurship that you can use in a bunch of different disciplines in a bunch of different areas in your life.
Correct.
Is that not possible? Is that common to be taught in high school?
No, like
I don't even think it's popular to be taught in college.
It's probably not. honestly. And I never took a business class in college, but I always had like a entrepreneurship like kind of mindset. But I didn't know it when I was young. I just knew I liked making money, but I would find like little tricks of the trade to make money. Like I would sell clothes, I would sell like candy here, sell gum or whatnot. And little did I know that was because I had an entrepreneurship my mindset. So if I find kids like that, I try to basically try to expose them to the max. I'm like, all right, so if you're making money like this, how can you expand this? How can you maybe get some people under you who can sell some of the same things and you making money off of them? That way you're not working so hard. It's like I'm challenging kids who are kind of in that mindset just to see how far they will want to take it, but also see if they're really about this entrepreneurship life as well too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we talked a lot about, youth and, them taking on the responsibility to do the shadow work in order to overcome their self-esteem issues and just tackle life the way that they want it. With that being said, let's talk a little bit briefly about parents. I don't know if you work, I assume you work with parents. I mean, if you do work with youth or if you do work with teens, what are some parenting tips that you can suggest? Positive parenting tips that a parent can bestow on their child if their child is suffering with low self-esteem or self-esteem issues, anxiety or depression, because those are some heavy, heavy emotions to be dealing at a relatively young age, and it could be challenging to, take that on by yourself. So if you have anything that you would like to share about that.
Yeah, the parents really just have to kind of put their foot down. They got to really get those kids away from those devices and try to put them into some real world situations. I always suggest volunteering because if you get them away from them devices and you put them in real world situations where they're interacting with people or just doing something good and something positive, that helps. Another thing I tell parents, you got to network, you got to utilize your network and try to help some of these kids just get just exposure to the max, especially if it's a kid that kind of knows what they want to do. How can you help them just see that world from inside and out, or just see all the possibilities under that umbrella? Like, for example, I meet a lot of kids that will tell me that they want to get a law degree, right? But they don't realize that with the law degree, you can do more than just be in and out the courtroom. Like they don't realize you can work for a tech company, work for a school, even work for a nonprofit and never see a courtroom a day. Know what I'm saying? Like they're maybe reviewing contracts or whatnot. But a lot of kids, they just have that one track mind that, well, if I become a lawyer, I'm just in and out of a courtroom. Like, nah, there's a lot that you can do with that. So if parents knew like all the opportunities that they can expose their kids to, they need to do that and just really, like I preach, is do it to the max. Like if you got a kid that is really interested in, let's just say it's entrepreneurship, how can you put them in that room full of entrepreneurs where they can network? Or maybe can you get them signed up with some entrepreneurship club? If it's not at a local school, could it be at a Boys and Girls Club or at a YMCA? Like, are you really utilizing the resources that are around you? Because that will ultimately help a lot of these kids. And that's what I try to encourage with the parents in today's world, because kids, they need exposure, and which is also one of my chapters in my book as well too.
So do you have a network of organizations that you work with? So if a concerned parent comes to you, you have some type of resource to provide to them, like, hey, these are some organizations that I work with. If your teenager or your youth is interested in this, that, and the third, do you?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm constantly like recommending just organizations for parents, because I'll never say I'm the end all be all. Like I have everything covered, because I don't. But there is enough people doing a lot of amazing work. And I'm not going to single out Raleigh. I'm going to just say in a triangle as a whole that I can probably 9 times out of 10 direct your kid to if I can't help them out in more ways than one. But in Durham, Raleigh, those are probably where I got the most partnerships at. Absolutely. I can definitely direct a parent if I can't help that student out in some way, shape, or form. And like I said, there's a lot of amazing people doing some amazing work outside of myself.
Great. I believe you. I totally believe you. So we talked about schools struggling with incorporating adversity talks or adversity classes within their curriculum. Of course, entrepreneurship is non-existent in, I can't say in all school systems, but it's not that popular.
Correct. Yeah.
But mental health, have you seen schools do a good job of incorporating mental health conversations within the core curriculum?
No, I haven't.
Get out of here, really?
I haven't. And even if you wanted to say that they're having conversations around it, it's almost like null and void. And it needs to be a lot better as well too, because I think if the mental health awareness in kids like picked up, I think that would help them probably back off a lot of these phones or tablets or Chromebooks as well too. Because if you go back to 2000 and you look at the way technology has exploded, mental health has exploded.
Yeah.
Almost literally the same trend. And it's really affecting girls more than it does boys from a technology standpoint. But if we're going to single out like platforms for girls, it really hurts them when it comes from a social media perspective. And for boys, it really hurts them when it comes to like playing video games of some sort. Yeah, and that's how you see like the mental health issues basically just rising. And a lot of it is attached to not only just the screen time, but just everything that they might have in their environment. Just think about it. If they're getting not enough sleep, if they got a poor diet, lack of exercise, like all that is expanding on their current mental health issue. And I want to put this to bed as well too. There's a lot of kids who feel like ADHD is a mental health issue. It is not. ADHD is really a response when you feel like you are stressed or in a stress environment. That is not a mental health issue. That's me basically putting you in an environment and you're reacting a certain way. So if you don't want me to react that certain way, don't put me in that environment. I need to be in a different environment, or I need to be up and moving, or I need something that I can maybe fidget my hands with or something like that. But I'm constantly telling kids that ADHD is not a bad thing. So if you're taking medicine for it, personally, I don't feel like you should even be taking medicine for it, depending on your diagnosis. Because a lot of times that medicine is supposed to help you calm down. But if we're talking about in the long run, it hurts you more than it helps you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all ADHD is just a stress response. That is it, point blank, period. And if that kid is still in that environment that's making them stressed, then of course they're going to keep reacting the way they are, because nobody has addressed the atmosphere that kid is in that's causing all that stress.
And what's scary is that when the stress doesn't relate to an environment, it's just 100% internal.
Yes.
That's when it gets a little tricky.
It is.
Because you can't run away from your brain.
No, you can't at all.
And going back to the medicine comment that you made, our bodies have the capability of healing us.
Absolutely.
Our organs regenerate, I think, every 7 years. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But our body regenerates all the time. Our skin, we grow new hair, nails, all that stuff. So, I mean, if it's working externally, it's definitely working internally. I don't know the cadence.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how would you go about, you talked about how you would incorporate adversity into this, into the curriculum, which sounds like using real life experiences in order to teach the youth. Yeah. Which I do want to appreciate. I do want to mention another thing too. A wise man touches a fire or touches a touches a flame and he burns himself. But the wisest man sees someone else touch that same flame, burn himself, and knows not to touch that flame. Yeah. So basically that's what you're doing. Hey, these are the mistakes that I made, or this is the path that I took when I was your age. I'm telling you this because I want you to do better than I did, because I did not have the guidance on how to navigate these situations. Just wanted to make that comment for the adversity. But for the mental health, how would you go about incorporating, mental health conversations or doing a better job with incorporating that into the school system, knowing that youth and teenagers are, like you said, social media, video games, and so much other stuff.
So this will probably be like the boring part of the curriculum or the day for students. But if I was doing it, I would be reviewing real life situations that's happened to kids revolving around like the mental health world, whether it's kids not getting enough sleep or kids dealing with, it could be ADHD, it could be being bipolar. Just, take your pick, anxiety, depression, whatever it is, like us dissecting articles about it, us reading, or maybe watching a YouTube video about somebody experiencing it, having a conversation about it. Like literally those are what should be talked about when it comes to the mental health issue, but also a lot of negatives that are coming around it and what's causing it, because there's a cause and effect somewhere at the end of the day. So if we know a lot, I mean, not the lack of screen time, but if we know a lot of screen time is causing it, what's going to basically give you the tools to back away from this and realize that if I stay on this at this amount of time, then this could lead to this. So those are the conversations that need to be had, not just a PowerPoint where you're going through these slides and you just want kids to reach out to you if they feel like they have any problems, or if you see any kid reacting a certain way, you want the kids to come tell a counselor or whatnot. That's not addressing mental health at the end of the day, because a lot of kids aren't going to tell on their friend or anything anyway. They're going to try to help their friend or whatnot, try to navigate through the situation. And a lot of kids don't even know a lot of mental health issues anyway. They don't even know what it looks like. Mm-hmm. So how do you expect them just to report it? Or you just want somebody to kind of overreact in a stressful environment, aka ADHD, and then when it gets to that point where they explode, then you want a student or two to go tell a counselor. Like, it could be the environment once again. Mm-hmm. But we're not addressing the problem, and we're not even trying to get to the bottom of the problem as well too. So if you don't get to the bottom of the problem, how do we expect to fix it? Because I'm not saying the conversation can fix it, but what I'm saying is if we have more conversations around it, especially from a youth perspective, that can help not only prevent it, but that can also help a lot of youth recognize like what's going on around them. And if we want to tie that to a subject, that could be another aspect of psychology. Yeah, psychology will help with that.
So right now, do you see it being a common norm that if a student or a youth has problems with their mental health, they go talk to their guidance counselor?
I don't, you know what? That might be a norm, but I think more kids are more likely to go to whoever they feel is like a trusted adult. So whether it's a counselor, whether it's a mentor, or it could be a coach. It could be somebody who's like an aunt or uncle or whatnot. Because at least, let me speak for Wake County, because I'm not going to act like I've been to every school in North Carolina, but for Wake County, I think the average number for counselors dealing with kids is somewhere, it's ridiculous. It's like one counselor to like every, I'm throwing this number out there, but give or take 50. But it's like, for every 350 kids, it's like one counselor to a kid. So to expect the counselor to help all these kids with any career aspirations they may have, and then be able to address whether it's mental health issues or whatnot, it's not happening a lot. And if it is happening from a counselor standpoint, personally, the counselors that I know, they're not helping out with mental health issues. They're trying to help the kids from a career aspect, but not from that aspect, because that's a whole nother dynamic that kids deal with. But they don't really have anywhere to go to, honestly.
So it's not common for there to be like a school therapist?
No, not at a lot of public schools, no.
Really?
Not at all.
I'm actually shocked, especially in these times. Like you said, as technology increases, I mean, we're breaking into the AI.
Yeah.
And not a school hasn't thought about hiring a therapist? That's interesting.
Especially coming out of the pandemic as well, too. Because if you think about it, a lot of our kids are still really behind mentally. I mean, people don't want to call it for what it is, but um, because our kids lost that year and a half to 2 years of like traditional schooling, a lot of kids socially and emotionally are still behind. And then from an academic standpoint, they're still behind as well too. And I believe from a physical standpoint, a lot of kids are behind. I had an interesting conversation with a AAU coach. This was actually in the summertime too. This was probably around about August. I was just talking to him about my book, and he was actually based in Charlotte, and he said, "You know what else is not talked about?" We started talking about the pandemic or whatnot, and he said, "I think a lot of these kids weren't didn't grow properly," and I was like, "Oh," I said, "That's interesting. Why you say that?" He said, "Well, if you think about it, a lot of kids weren't able to kind of be outside and maybe play in the sun or playground, whatnot, or even if it wasn't even outside, maybe go to like practices and stuff because everybody was cooped up in the house." He said, "I really feel like that played a role on a lot of kids physically." And I thought about it and I was like, man, he makes a good point. It probably did. And as we got deeper in the conversation, he said, when I go to AAU tournaments, I'm used to seeing like teams with 3 or 4 big kids. Now he said, I'll be lucky if I see 2. And I was like, oh, so you even got proof.
Wow.
And that's how I took the conversation. So I said, wow, that's something else, like a whole nother dynamic nobody has really talked about or nobody has even addressed, like from a physical standpoint, like how many kids were really affected by the pandemic. So all of it not only plays a role, but we really still haven't even addressed it a lot. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people still doing studies and stuff on it now.
This is amazing. I did not know. I'm so glad I'm speaking with you. I mean, I hate to hear this information.
Yeah.
But I truly did not know that this was happening in the school system. Don't get me wrong. I've heard the horror stories about how some children can't even read, and stuff like that. But to hear this type of talk is very disheartening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know, it's already bad enough that, you know, when it comes to the schools, of course, there's not enough, you know, minority representation in a lot of the schools. Of course, there's not enough males in the schools, but, you know, it's like one thing that adds up on top of another. And when it comes to kids just having resources, like, I'll be honest with you, let's just say one of my kids come to me and they said they feel like they have a mental health issue. I would, without doing any research, I wouldn't even know who to really point them in the direction to, depending on what school they at. Like, I might be able to connect them to like the counselor that I have a good relationship with, but like a really like a point of contact person within the school, no, they don't have that at all.
Wow. So it's solely dependent on the family to figure out the child's mental health resources.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Wow. Wow. So let's talk about After School Special.
Okay.
So you founded it in 2016.
Yes.
Nonprofit. Focuses on restoring. We talked about self-love.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about social skills. Also, compassion. That's another point. And also helping teens to find their purpose or passion in life. So if you want to talk about the compassion piece, why that's important, and I feel as though helping teens to find their purpose in life is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
But main question I wanted to ask is, you could have chosen any 4 topics or any 4 outlets to help these teens, but you chose those 4 in particular. Why those 4? I mean, you talked about the self-love and social skills and how it's necessary, but
yeah,
I mean, there's so many more things that you could focus on, but why these 4?
I think those 4 because I feel like those 4 will help a teenager just be a more well-rounded adult ultimately. And I want to touch on the compassion one. Yeah. The reason why the compassion is so big for me is because if I ask a teenager, it's an age-old question, what you going to do when you graduate? You know, I'll get a lot of, I don't know, and I don't know where to start. if I do get that answer, what I'll ask a kid is next is I'll say, all right, so what can you change? What can you change maybe in this world? What can you change in this community? Or what can you change maybe in your family? And I found that that question has really gotten kids' wheels thinking, and that's when the creativity starts. But I feel like just doing that type of work, because 9 times out of 10, it is around nonprofit work. That's where the compassion comes into play at, because now you're really trying to take your gifts and talents and utilize it in a specific type of service. So the compassion part really comes through acts of service, and which is what I love most, because when I do put kids in those type of environments, 9 times out of 10, they do thrive. And I wouldn't put a kid if I didn't feel like they weren't ready to be in that type of environment, in that environment anyway. But 9 times out of 10, when they do, when they're volunteering, whether it's a, let's just say it's a big fundraiser for a nonprofit here, or maybe serving the homeless for breakfast there, like they thrive in that type of environment. And a lot of those kids end up doing stuff like that even as they get older, and whenever they go off to college or community college as well too, they still find a way to kind of give back and be in those type of spaces. So I love that part of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And in the name After School Special, I assume this is an after school program.
Correct.
So could you go through like the curriculum? Like what is a day or an after school time with you? How does that, like, what are we doing when we come in? Like, however you want to go about it.
So yes. No, I'm glad you asked that question. So day in the life for After School Special, 9 times out of 10, we come in, and I have teenagers basically 9th through 12th grade. One of the first things that we do is we actually sit in silence.
Wow.
We just sit in silence. I don't ask the kids to meditate, even though some of them end up doing, but we just sit in silence. No words, no sound, no nothing. Get them away from the devices. And I just allow them just to think. And we usually do that anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And then after my alarm goes off, that's when we kind of check in with each other. We see how everybody's week has been going. And then it's more of me trying to help kids kind of build a pathway through of success, but through their eyes. So if I meet a kid, let's say his name is John, I'm like, all right, John, I've been working with you since 10th grade. We've been going down this path. All right, do you want to continue to explore this path? And let's just say this path is entrepreneurship. Do you want to continue to explore, go down this entrepreneurship path? Or should we look down another path? Should it be finances? Should you go into marketing? That way you're still around this entrepreneurship world. It's more of me trying to make sure I'm setting these kids up for basically success. Because another big part of what I do too is I'll actually fund kids to go to conferences in careers that they're interested in. So I know every year down in Raleigh, there's a big veterinarian conference that always happens. I believe it's around November. I've actually had the privilege to take a few kids to. And I found that putting kids in that atmosphere, of course, it's a little bit, I'm going to say, intimidating for them. But I'm in that conference with them, and we're basically just networking and talking to people in this industry. And I'm asking adults that, can you tell my teenager about the good and the bad of this career? Like, what are some of the things that you've experienced? What are some of the things that you've hated? Like, what are some of the challenges? And I'm allowing kids really to get real world testimonies in real time. And also so they can learn some of the other wheels that they might not know is under this umbrella for this career as well too. So it's really me building a road to success with each and every teenager that I'm working with. And 9 times out of 10, when I'm checking in with them, it's more of me just trying to build that connection that I already have with that teen as well too. Just to make sure they're having a good week. Making sure things are good on the home front, because if I'm not working together, not only from a school standpoint, but from a home standpoint, it's never going to work with us. because I'm always going to have something clashing with what I'm trying to do. So I got to make sure the school front is good. I got to make sure the home front is good in order for the program to work the way I want it to work.
So outside of the conferences, the after school special, it's almost like a check-in.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
not like carried out like in like a classroom setting, like with you at the front and like a bunch of kids just like looking at you. It's you're almost like going around and just talking to each child, each youth individually, right? Am I kidding?
Yeah, for the most part. Now there is times when I'll do workshops because I do.
Okay, you do workshops.
Yeah, I do experiment on my kids. Like a lot of times I'll do like a self-love workshop, or if I'm experimenting with something, I'll try it on my kids. Like I just created a workshop around AI, trying to teach my kids about some of the negative sides about AI, about how to realize when people are trying to scam them or whatnot. Because of course with AI, that stuff is going to increase. We don't like to talk about it, but who's preparing the kids for it? So I'll try workshops and stuff with my kids, but I'll also bring in guest speakers as well too.
Okay.
Like I'll have a guest speaker who might be in a, let's say, a tow truck business, or somebody who's a chiropractor, just so they can kind of meet somebody in real time, but from a career that probably doesn't get like enough publicity. And also, a lot of teens don't realize like this is an opportunity. Like going back to the chiropractor, like this is like a industry that I can get into from a healthcare perspective, but nobody really talks about it. I don't remember meeting any chiropractors when I was growing up. I don't think I realized that was a career until I was in the Air Force. So, it's trying to expose my kids to industries like that. So I will have guest speakers. I will do workshops as well. But 9 times out of 10, it's really me checking in with my kids, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, just so they can stay on this trajectory to success. But like I said, I'm creating it literally through their eyes. So whatever they're trying to experience, whatever they're trying to get exposed to, that's what we're doing.
Interesting. So when you also talked about involving parents.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have like a parent teacher conference, or like every single time, I doubt it, but every single time a parent picks up their child, do you have like a talk with them, or do you have like certain days out of the month that you kind of check in with the youth's family to make sure how to...
So it's not really like a check-in with the family. It's more of like the parents have access to me, but a lot of times I'm not really talking to the parents until it's time to maybe pick that teenager up and take them to, whether it's a conference or to a community outreach type opportunity. And I'm telling them the reason behind it and basically why this is going to be important and how your child can hopefully thrive in this type of environment. And then if they have any questions or if they need access to me, they have it literally like 24/7, 365. So 9 times out of 10, that's when I'm getting introduced to the parents, and I'll tell them, this is how I met your student. This is why I've been working with your student. And these are the rooms that I've been able to put your child in. And I want to continue to help your child thrive. But in order to do that, I need to be able to take them to this event. I need to take them to that event. And hopefully this is going to expand his world and knowledge in this like specific career. So that's how I'm communicating with the parents. And then I'm like, do you have any questions for me? Do you need any testimonies? Do you want to talk to the counselor who brought me in? Like, I'm trying to see whatever they need so they can feel comfortable with me and realize I'm not somebody just literally coming from left field and trying to talk and kidnap their child or whatnot. Like, now I'm trying to help your child reach their full potential in life.
Have you ever considered being a teacher?
I have, but I haven't.
You have, but you haven't.
Yeah.
Especially like knowing the lack of, teaching about adversity, entrepreneurship, mental health. Like, have you ever considered, talking to the school systems that you're currently working with and saying, hey, I feel as though these 3 things and more are things that are important in a youth's development, and I'm open and willing to help in this area? Have you? I guess you said you have, but you haven't.
It's like I've thought about it too, but I've also realized like to teach what I teach, since there's no like specific subject for it, it's almost like I wouldn't be able to teach it my way. So that's what's kind of helped me like back off of trying to kind of be in that atmosphere, because I get asked all the time like, hey, Mr. Ian, can you come teach here? Like, you ever thought about teaching here? Like, I get that all the time from kids, but I always tell them this. I said, if I'm going to teach you what I need to teach you so I can prepare you for that next chapter in life, I can't be behind a specific subject. So I can't. But we can still continue to work together. Like if you need a job shadow opportunity or internship, I can try to reach out and try to set you up on the pathway of success. So what do you want to do? And that's kind of like how a conversation will start with a teenager or two. But that's the only reason why I haven't thought about teaching, like just from a curriculum standpoint, because I don't feel like I will be able to teach the kids what they really need to be successful in life.
Have you thought about or already incorporated adversity conversations, mental health conversations, and entrepreneurship conversations within After School Special?
Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons why I preface myself being the best educator that nobody knows, because I'm touching all that stuff that people don't touch or really don't know much about. And also there's something else that I do as well too, is I also do research on like other countries and their school systems and like what they're doing to thrive, but also what's happening that might be hurting them as well too. And like the overconsumption of technology is hurting kids like all over the globe. Like it's not just an America thing. It's not just a North Carolina thing. This is a problem like all over the globe. But there's certain countries that are doing certain things to try to kind of minimize that impact that technology is having on a lot of the kids. So a lot of times the stuff that I'm learning that other countries are doing, especially the countries that are best in education, I'm implementing that in my program. Like one of the biggest thing that I would love to have with my program is not only be able to provide them with healthier food, but have those healthy food conversations, like especially with the farmer or maybe like a local like herbalist or something like that, so they can know how important nature is as well too. That's probably like the biggest thing that I'm missing from my program.
I can introduce you to some farmers.
Okay, well,
in the Triangle area.
Well, I definitely need that.
I can definitely do that. 100%.
Yeah.
So I also know that After School Special, you have 3 projects. Project ME. I don't know if it's ME or me.
It's me.
It's me. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's M.E.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, I don't know. Project Inclusion and Project Passion.
Yep.
So care to talk about what each of those projects entail?
Yeah. So I'll start out with Project Me. Project Me is really the self-love aspect.
Okay.
So that's kind of like where, and all these projects are designed for me to kind of have you in 9th grade and literally work with you from 9th grade to 12th grade.
Gotcha.
So Project Me is that self-love aspect. So literally everything we talked about today, that's what I'm incorporating with self-love. So I'm trying to help you increase your self-awareness so you can be able to, like I said, set those boundaries, be able to make the right decision when adversity hits you, or even if you do make the wrong decision, which we all do, how you can bounce back from that, because that's not your end all be all. That's just the choice you made at the time. You felt like it was right, so you can always bounce back from it and learn from other people's stories or whatnot. But going back to the Project Me, that's really the self-love aspect of it. Project Inclusion is more of the team building aspect of it, because you can't tell me any career that you'll go into where you're not working with somebody. Even if you were going into business by yourself, you still got to work with your customers.
Right.
And you still got to be able to communicate with your customers. You got to know what's working right with your customers. So the Project Inclusion is more of the team building collaborative part, where I'm teaching kids not only about entrepreneurship, but also how to basically hone in on your weaknesses, but how to collaborate with people who can complement basically your weaknesses. So it's more of a team aspect, just team working aspect of it. And I usually focus on that from, I'm going to say 10th and 11th grade for that. So you got Project Me, Project Inclusion, and then Project Passion. That's hopefully that's your senior year, right? And then with Project Passion, that's when we kind of put everything together and we're basically trying to create that pathways to success through your eyes. So we're trying to find a career that you want to gravitate to, because I believe it's just as important to know things that you don't want to do as it is things that you do want to do, because at least the things you don't want to do, you know, not to kind of gravitate towards that, or you can at least say, I tried that, I met somebody in that career or whatnot, I don't think it was for me, so let me try to navigate this way. But this is more of the exposure piece of my program, where I am able to hopefully take you out to that conference or set you up on that internship, that job shadow opportunity, or maybe connect you with a mentor that's in that industry. So basically you can kind of get exposure to the max in that career. And by the time I finish with you, hopefully instead of you going from you don't know what you want to do when you graduate, hopefully by the time you finish with me, you now know what you want to do when you graduate, and you know what you want to do with confidence. So I like to tell people, I don't recommend a gap year for everybody, but I like to tell people I do have a prevention and a solution. So if I'm not able to get to your teen in time, I know the solution. The solution is your team probably needs to take a gap year, because at the end of the day, do you really want your kid going out there, jumping off into college, and let's just say 2 or 3 years down the road, they figure out what they want to do, and then it might take them maybe 5 or 6 years just to graduate school? Just think about how much debt might be hanging over their head. So I don't want teens to go through that. I don't want teens to have to start all over if they're in that college type of atmosphere. So how can we not only minimize that, but also have that team just get this life exposure to the point where they know what they want to do, and also they're prepared for it, and they know what they need to do to get there? Because I think that will help a teen a lot further than them just going off into college or community college, or just any post-secondary education situation blindly.
I agree.
Yeah.
So during your after-school program, are you working with ninth graders through 12th graders at the same time?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. It also depends on the school too, because a lot of times I'll meet with the kids by grade. So it just depends on the school and kind of what works out, because a lot of issues that I have is my kids not having transportation. So sometimes I might have to work with them within the school day, like during lunch or something. So I'm not able to meet with them out of school like I would want to, and really kind of hone in on some things that we've been working on.
Understood.
Yeah.
So we talked about gap years with youth.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you believe that parents have a hard time conceptualizing the importance of a gap year?
Because it's not the norm, and parents have fell for the "we need college to be successful" narrative. I mean, case in point, look at basically from a U.S. standpoint, look at our student loan debt ratio. Look at how many people who graduated in a certain degree, but they're probably not even working in their field. We like to champion black women being the highest educated, but nobody's talking about the student loan debt that's attached with that. So we fell for it takes college to be successful, but in reality, there was a lot that came with college that didn't benefit us. Now, I'm not saying college isn't for everybody, but I think from a strategic planning standpoint, we can do a better job of navigating through certain careers for college. Because hypothetically speaking, let's say I get a degree in arts. What job do I really go to for that? Or let's say I get a degree in like history or something. What job do I really go to for that? So until we start to connect those dots and have those conversations, like this problem is going to continue to happen. And from a statistic standpoint, like males have been dropping, have not been going into college anyway. Like a lot more males actually have been going into community college and trade school. So hopefully the trades can kind of pick back up as well too, because I am an advocate for kids going into trades, especially males, mainly because it's a job skill that regardless of how AI advances, like we're still going to need those jobs and we still going to need people in those fields. But why not have a skill that never going to die?
Right.
Cause like, even if I could go back again, I believe I would have went to trade school. And then I probably would have went to the military, and then I probably would have still got out because I probably would have did something with that trade that I learned, because I didn't know how profitable it was. I didn't make the connection of how much it was needed in the industry. But going back to your question, I believe the problem is because we fell for that you need college to be successful narrative. And in reality, it really didn't benefit us from a majority standpoint. A lot of us are still thriving off of college. A lot of us are still doing good. But there's a lot of us that are suffering. And there's a lot of us who, if we could do it all over again, either we would have did a different major, or we probably wouldn't have went straight into college. We probably would have went to that trade school, or we probably just would have did community college and then jumped into the workforce. So those are the conversations that we really, really need to have in order for our kids to not basically getting that academic debt.
I totally agree with you. So do you believe that parents think that if their child takes a gap year that they're not going to go to college? Because a gap year, just like we talked about in the name, it's just a year off. Like we're taking a year off. We can still go to college. It's just we just needed this time to figure out who we are, what we want to do, and how we want to pivot in life. Because you said that, parents are being bought into this whole thinking that college is important. I mean, gap year is just taking off a year. We're going to go to college eventually, but I just needed some time to slow down and pump the brakes and really assess why I want to do why I want to do what I believe I want to do, and know that I want to do it for me and it's not because of any outside influence.
Yeah, but the majority of parents are fearful that their kids,
if they take a year off, they're going to take 2 years off, 3 years off, and then eventually
that's it.
So that's the reason.
Yeah,
they're afraid that a year is going to turn into indefinite,
1, 2, maybe even 6. Yeah, they're just fearful that the child is not going to pick it back up and realize what's important. Which 9 times out of 10, there is some form of like higher education that you're going to have to do anyway. Like regardless of what career you do, whatnot, right? But their fear is just them not jumping back out there to go to college or whatnot, especially if, let's just say, your mom or dad went to A&T or Central or something like that. They want to keep that legacy. So they're fearful that the legacy might end with their child not going to that HBCU or whatnot. So, it's a lot of things that play that basically play into it. But I think ultimately it's the fear of their kids not wanting to go back to college or not wanting to go to college in the first place. They think that gap year is going to last 2, 3, 4, and maybe even 10 years or whatnot before they figure it out. So they rather kind of force them in there. But, it's a new day and age. Like a lot of kids aren't going to thrive like that. You can't just push the kids in there and think that they're going to thrive in that environment, because a lot of kids, they're just not ready for it. And I think that's another conversation that's not talked about enough too, because I meet a lot of kids that they're just not mature enough to be in that environment by themselves, but parents will still push their kids off and let them go to college. And I see it time and time again. Kids might make it to maybe January, maybe February. Some of them don't even get through the first semester and they're back home.
And another thing that's not talked about enough too is parents don't want to be put in an awkward situation as well.
Yeah.
Parents don't want, another parent to come over and say, hey, how's John? How's he enjoying college? Oh, he's taking a gap year. Like, they don't want to have those conversations with their adult friends.
Yeah.
And because if they themselves don't 100% believe in it,
yeah,
and they're doing it because they want to give their child a chance at taking the reins of their life, then they know for a fact that their neighbors, their friends, when they try to explain to them, like, my son, my daughter's taking a gap year, they don't want to endure that.
The judging.
Thank you. The judgment. So they force their kids to kind of save their face. That's not talked about enough too. Yes, you have the, I'm an alum or alumnus of this school. You have the parents who say, this is what you're supposed to do. But a lot of parents, they don't want to have that conversation with other people. Because for a whole entire year, you're constantly re-explaining and explaining. As their children are getting, higher and higher, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade in college, they have to constantly explain to other parents who certainly don't see what they're trying to see themselves.
That's true. That's true. Especially those who don't know. But those who know, and I'm talking about parents who've actually done it, oh my goodness, they think it's the greatest thing that their child's going to take, a gap year or whatnot and try to figure it out. But one thing I want to remind parents is, remember, this has been a concept that has been around for a while. Now, what happened is rich people used to do that with their kids. Like, they used to allow their kids to take gap years. So it was kind of like a foreign concept. But also remember that Ivy League schools, they're advocates for it. Remember, other countries are advocates for it as well too. But Ivy League schools, it's labeled under a different name. It's actually called the Deferred Entry Program. So
so you can get accepted to the university.
Yep.
Oh.
But you can defer your start date to that following year. Yeah, like a lot of Ivy League schools, like the first one I thought of was Harvard, but Harvard been doing that for years. I don't know when they started it or whatnot, but I know Harvard has been doing that for years. And the only reason why I learned about Harvard doing it is because this was like several years ago. I had a teenager who was interested in trying to get into Harvard. So I was just researching like different ways that they can kind of get accepted into Harvard. And that's what I stumbled on that. And this was way before I decided to write a book on the gap year concept or whatnot. So it was just me learning through that and how Harvard accepts like a lot of students or whatnot. And I was like, oh man, this is kind of interesting concept at the time. But yeah, going back to it, like if parents knew the benefits, I think a lot more parents would be accepted of it. And if they knew their kid was ready for that, I'm going to say that atmosphere to take a gap year and know that that kid is going to try to do everything in that year to basically prepare them for the following year.
Yes. So how do you see after school special growing, changing, evolving in the short term, long term?
In the short term, as I get out and talk to more schools, I think it's always going to evolve from a mouth-to-mouth standpoint because of the kids that I work with, and also just me being able to go to schools, talk about not only the gap year concept, but just tell kids, like, kind of plant that seed. And it's not like I'm trying to plant that seed on purpose, but it's more of me having a conversation with a kid and telling them, like, well, listen, if you really don't know what you want to do, why are you going to jump out there and like go to college? What's wrong with you going to Wake Tech first? Or you don't necessarily even have to go to Wake Tech. Like in North Carolina, we have one of the top community college systems in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
I know we ranked in the top 5, like collectively. And I don't know the exact number right off the top of my head, but it doesn't even have to be Wake Tech. It could be Edgecombe Community College. It could be Johnston Community College. Whatever your local community college is, take advantage of that. And a lot of times, there's more resources that you can have just going to that community college than you would going to a 4-year school or whatnot. And I want to put this out there too. another thing that's not talked about enough is, especially from like private colleges, a lot of colleges as a whole, their enrollment is dying. Nobody's acknowledging that their enrollment is dying like across the board. And I'm gonna call out like a lot of liberal arts schools, because if those liberal arts schools don't do things to kind of promote themselves or get out there when a lot of these schools are doing like their college and career days or whatnot, a lot of these schools ain't going to exist in the next 10, 20 years.
Oh, I believe it.
Because not only do we got enrollment dropping off, but the cost to go to school is rising up as well too. So you got both of those playing a role. And then on top of that, and I hate to call them out, but why would I go to, let's just say St. Aug's not in the situation that they're in, but why would I go to a St. Aug if I can get into like NC State or a UNC? Like, what are you doing to draw me to go to your school versus going to one of the top state schools that are in my state or maybe just near me or whatnot? So going back to what I'm saying, a lot of these colleges, personally, they're going to have to do something different and from a marketing standpoint, because they're going to die down. And if they don't do no type of joint partnership with some of these state schools or whatnot, yeah, some of these schools that we know that exist probably ain't going to exist in the next 10 to 15 years.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. As far as promoting a gap year and the importance of a gap year, have you thought about working with the guidance counselors
Yes.
of the schools that you already work with to see if you can put together either a one-time presentation or a one-time workshop, or just something where you can talk to the school as a whole, not just like the after-school program, and say like, hey, you already know me. I've been, working at this school for X amount of years through my after-school special program. I feel as though that it's important that the school body or the student body needs to know the importance of a gap year, what it is, why it's important, stuff like that. So it sounds like you've considered that.
Yeah, I've definitely done that. But, crazy thing about it is there's no like shotgun approach to it. It's like different schools just operate in different ways, because, for one school, it might be me going through a counselor, but from another school, it might be me going through a parent who just happen to have the right connections. And then the other school, it might just be me networking with a assistant principal. And the assistant principal putting me in front of the right people. So it's weird how, and I don't want to single out Wake County, but I got to, because that's where I operate in. It's weird how Wake County, a lot of their schools operate, because it's just different from school to school. But I have tried that approach from some schools. It's worked. From others, I don't even get a call back, which is kind of crazy, because I'm seeing the trend grow. Like I've actually done research in a lot of the schools that I'm in, and by my count, 1 out of every 6 students are in that I don't know what I want to do when I graduate mindset, which means
1 out of 8.
No, 1 out of 6.
Oh, 6.
Yeah, which means those kids either need to take a gap year, or those kids should be going off into community college trying to figure out what it is that they want to do. Those kids should not be getting pushed into regular school, which 9 times out of 10, especially if you have a parent that went to college, that's what a lot of parents are doing. And I believe you're setting your kid up for failure if you do that. But that's something that I've definitely tried to do with counselors. Believe it or not, I've actually spoke to a whole bunch of counselors within Wake County, and I didn't get that many callbacks from some of the schools, which is kind of crazy, because like I said, the trend is growing. And I've met kids in not only public school, but charter and private school. I've met kids, regardless of the school, they want to take gap years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, well, we already answered that. I don't want to, it's fine. But I know that we've been alluding to your book,
Correct.
Gap Year, this whole entire interview.
Yeah.
I know what we have been talking about is probably the contents of the book, but I just wanted you to give you a moment or a space to just share about your book. However you want to go about it. You can talk about the writing process. You can talk about, what motivated. Oh, we know what motivated you. I just want to give you an opportunity to speak on your book because we've been alluding to it this whole interview. So please talk about your book, Gap Year. When was it released?
Thank you. So the book was actually released in 2022.
Okay.
And I want to talk about how the book came about because the teacher doesn't get enough credit. So believe it or not, I had a teacher plant a seed of me writing a book. I never thought writing a book was in the cards. I've always worked with youth, kind of like in a after school type capacity. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was literally catching this teacher up who was I'm going to give him a shout out, Millbrook High School at the time. She's not there no more. But I had ran into her at this event and I was just catching her up with things I was doing, things I had up and coming. And she just stops me in the middle of my story and she just says, "You know what you need to do?" And I was like, "What?" She was like, "You need to write a book." And I was like, "What? Write a book?" I said, "For what?" And she said, "Because that book might be able to open up doors for you that you might not be able to open up for yourself." And when she said that, it kind of hit me different. And it literally stuck with me for the rest of the day. I asked a couple of my friends what they thought about me writing a book, got their opinion on it. Of course, they agreed with her. But I'm still wrestling with the situation of why would I write a book and when would I make time for it? And I kid you not, I was leaving a friend's house and I thought of the book title. I said, you know what? If I wrote a book, I would write something on this gap year concept, mainly because at the time, I actually thought it was a trend, but I didn't know it was a growing trend. I thought kids were just telling me that kind of like as a safety net because they were just saying, oh, I'm going to take a gap year just to kind of maybe get like an adult or two off their back. But when I wrote the book and as I continued to do research on it, I realized like, oh no, this is like a real problem. And a lot of these kids really don't know what they want to do. So this is why this concept needs to be more embraced now more than ever. And like I said, going back to the pandemic didn't help either. So to me, it makes sense why a lot of kids, when you ask them that age-old question, what you want to do when you graduate, it makes sense if they say they don't know because maybe you didn't have enough time to get enough exposure or maybe you didn't come in contact with enough people from a career standpoint to kind of really know what's out there. So when it comes to the book, that's what started it. And I'm even learning stuff even to this day as I talk to people and meet with people. I'm glad I wrote it. I have a part 2 coming up as well too. The part 2 is going to be called Gap Years.
A parent's nightmare.
Yeah. And the part 2, the biggest difference between part 1 and part 2 is part 1 is coming from a situational standpoint, but I'm also talking about life skills along with talking about the whole gap year concept. And part 2 is really coming from a pro gap year standpoint. Like I'm talking about a lot of positives that can come out of it, but also why parents and kids should embrace taking a gap year if you're fall under that A, B, C type of criteria. Because one of the things I like to point out now more than ever is being college ready goes far beyond academics. Like if you're not mature enough, you don't know your social skills, if you don't have the emotional maturity to kind of be in those atmosphere, you don't know what to do when any type of adversity comes. Like you shouldn't be in a college atmosphere because you're setting yourself up for failure. So it's situations like that I'm going to be addressing with the book, but also, like I said, talking about a lot of positives that can come out of it because I really think parents don't realize the positive things that can come out of a gap year if it's done the right way. And like I said to you earlier, I've really met a lot of people like within the last year and a half to 2 years that really kind of motivated me to do the second part because of just all the positives that they told me that came out their gap year. And I didn't have that at the time. But now that I met those people and I'm still in contact with some of them, that's what kind of generated the book number 2. So, but I'm probably still about I'm going to say 6 to 9 months away from finishing that.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Well, I'm happy for you. That sounds great. I mean, to be able to write one book and then I mean, you said 2023.
22.
So I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
2022, and now you said 6 to 9 months away.
Yeah. So
Pretty big,
4 years. Yeah.
pretty nice turnaround.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I mean, takes a lot out of them to write their first book or a book.
Yes.
And they take a long hiatus. So it goes to show how passionate you are about gap years and just getting the word out and educating people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's all I have today. But before we officially end, is there any lasting comments that you would like to make about yourself, directed to youth, parents, your book, anything that you would like to leave the audience with? Please, if you want to say anything.
I just want to leave the audience with, please, 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 if you have a child that's going to take a gap year, embrace that as a parent and just help them navigate through that year. Because the message of my first book is, if your child is going to take a gap year, really just make a plan around it and don't let them work a 9-to-5 job and have them call that a quote unquote gap year, because that's not what it's supposed to be. But my message is basically help your child if they're going to take a gap year. And also, too, don't force your child to do something that you know they're not ready for. Because I have seen that a lot, especially in these last couple of years. I've seen a lot of kids get forced into going to a college, not just one in general, but a college. And they knew their kids weren't ready. And their kids were back home before the year even changed. So please don't set your kids up, and that will not only hurt them from a anxiety and depression standpoint, but even from a social standpoint, that might isolate them. Like, you don't know how your child's going to bounce back being in that situation. So please don't set them up for failure like that. But also, too, parents, when it comes to supporting your child, just try to do that as much as you can, because you got to remember, your child didn't ask to be here. So help them as much as you can, because you want them to basically reach their full potential at life. And of course, we don't want them to fail, but we know failure helps a lot of us in the long run, because life's our best teacher. So don't be afraid of failure as well, too. So support, and don't be afraid of failure. Let your kids fail and tell them to fail multiple times. Yeah, because even when you think about it, most successful entrepreneurs from a business standpoint, they've failed many, many times. And probably still failing at some things.
They promote the wins, but behind every win is a plethora of failures. Yes,
absolutely. And from a academic standpoint, just encourage your kids to read. Make them start with things that they're just interested in. If it's sports, if it's video games, have them read something in that just lane. And hopefully that can build up their reading memory, because not only do our kids need to read more, but when it comes to our young men, across the board, regardless of the race, like, young men do not like to read. But it's funny how if I meet a young man in the school, I tell them about my book, they are interested in my book, but at the time they might not have money to purchase the book. So 9 times out of 10, if I do have a good relationship with that school, I will leave a copy for that student or two, especially if it's a young male who's really interested in my book. But yeah, try to get your kids into reading, because books ain't going nowhere either. And like I said earlier, statistically, it's been proven that we retain more and learn more if we read from a tangible book than we do online. So to help kind of build up that muscle memory in your child, like, tell them to read something that they're interested in, and hopefully that can just start the routine of day in and day out, maybe reading a page or two on this video game or on this sport, and they just pick up reading, the love for reading, because there's a lot out there. And, when it comes to even movies and stuff, I hear people say all the time, the book was way better than the movie.
Because it allows you to use your imagination.
Yep.
And to piggyback off of your book comment, in this digital age, in this world of, dopamine and, scrolling and stuff like that, unfortunately, books have lost their popularity.
Yeah.
And bookstores like Barnes & Nobles, they've been closing worldwide. But on top of reading things that you're interested in, when it comes to reading books, focus on consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, in this digital age, in this time, things that were once normal for us to do, reading, are now no longer popular. And when people think of books, they say, oh, wow, I got to complete this in a certain time frame. And, you know, when you're handed a book with 400 pages and you haven't read a book in months, if not years, from cover to back, or front to back, that's intimidating.
It is.
But if you focus on consistency, hey, I just need to read 2 pages a day.
Yeah.
That's all. 2 pages a day. It will get done eventually. I just need to read 2 pages a day.
Mm-hmm.
Do that consistently and enough times. I mean, the book will get done eventually. So yeah, focus on that consistency.
Yeah. And even when you, this be the last thing I'll land on this. Even when you think about AI, you got to be able to read the information that's spits back to you.
Right.
Because one thing that people probably don't say about AI is AI makes mistakes, and a lot of mistakes. So how you going to know if it makes a mistake back if you don't read all the information that it spits back to you?
Right. Well, Ian, this was a great conversation. I was really looking forward to this conversation. I was really looking forward to meeting you again and talking to you about After School Special and all the work that you've been doing with the youth. I just want to say congratulations for being committed to this path, this entrepreneurial journey of yours. It's definitely needed in this time, like we talked about. All of the youth, not all of the youth, but the majority of the youth are going through a lot of emotional and mental challenges, and a lot of people don't want to get their hands dirty with trying to remedy these problems. So it takes someone who's strong, it takes someone who's passionate, it takes someone who, you know, really wants to see the good in humanity to do what you're doing. And for as consistently as you've been doing it since 2016, at least with After School Special, you've been working with youth even when you were in the Air Force. So congratulations to you. I'm happy for you. And I'm glad that we were able to sit down and have this conversation so that the world now knows of a great teacher who will get the support and the recognition that you do deserve, because what you're doing is great. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come here and sit with me and have this conversation. And I hope that our interview, our talk, reaches the right people and get your phone ringing.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well overdue.
Awesome. That was great.
Guys.